Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. While some people have experienced substantial success over the past 4 years, a lot of others have had trials and tribulations and have survived some pretty difficult times. Not up to me to judge anybody based off their individual circumstances. That being said, one of the reoccurring themes in DC Detective Comics is the Joker's stance on life. And one of his depictions says that the Joker thinks it just takes one bad day to separate a normal person from becoming someone insane like him. And this has always been something that has made me think. Joker's not wrong. A lot of people get to a point where they just literally snap. And it can come from nowhere. The felon that jumped the table to get to the judge. There's somebody who snapped. We don't know the reasons why. But they've had a few bad days. Mostly their own cause, but that's his reaction. So why is it we look out on an average street, a city street, a street filled with all sorts of people, young, old, poor, rich, whatever the case might be, we don't see more Jokers. We don't see more Two-Faces. We don't see more Doctor Dooms. Well, the reason is because the Joker's wrong. And we've proved it during the past decades and centuries. The one thing humans have is hope. Now, this is proved by people who go through depressive episodes when they feel that they have no hope. They become abnormal, but instead of what the Joker said, most of them don't turn to a life of crime or dressing up and trying to pull pranks big enough to get a costume vigilante to chase after them. Most people hunker down. They might feel bad for themselves for a couple days if they're relatively mentally balanced. Might be a couple of weeks if they suffer from chemical deficiencies in their mind or any of the other contributing factors to depression. And this is not an indictment against them. Quite the opposite. I'm going to prove that the world as we know it today is substantially more vicious than it has been in any time in history. But like I said, humans have hope, and they manage to focus and cope with the stress around them. Now, first of all, here we are in the Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic world. Yet we're weird. And I love to use that term because it expresses us both in our acronym and expressing what we are. If you were in Israel, Ukraine, certain African states, North Korea, this is paradise. There's an old saying, oh my goodness, I think it was in, I don't know, I've read the book, was it Dante's Inferno or one of them? Better to be a slave in paradise than a king in the world. And that's what those people are going through. North Korea has been starving for generations and getting by countries donating rice to them. Mongolia is being culturally and they're just being repressed in every single way. I could name lots of nations all over the world that are going through hell. But the one thing that people have is hope and the stubbornness to continue. They have their fair share of depression and mental illness. Absolutely, I'm not denying those somehow go away. But they've achieved, I'm not going to say peace with their situation, but as long as they're able to survive and make it to the next day, that's all it takes for some people to say, hey, I beat however many people did not make it through the day. I won this round. Let's come back and do it tomorrow. It's probably expressed in more fatalistic terms because humanity likes dark humor, but dark humor, again, is a coping mechanism for bad times. Let's leave all that aside, though, because those are all special situations, and their means of coping are very different than ours. Just quickly, the Russians, for example, are so used to their system not providing for them, they grow their own stuff. Kitchen gardens, where they're able to raise carrots and things like that. Onions, are you kidding? If you do it right, onions will grow themselves. And my wife is very good at doing it. She's not Russian. But it's amazing the way people find to survive. A little garden out back, you're in paradise as far as most people are concerned. But let's go back to the Western, educated, industrialized, rich, democratic nations. Cannot be denied that we do have a problem at the lower layers of our society. And I'm saying lower layers because we really don't have a lot of strong answers about the homeless, and there's no real active studies going on. I have the only one that has ever been done. It's published by Snow and All, and it's called Down on Their Luck. And I spent a brief time homeless for reasons that I won't get into. Most homeless people are not insane. They are not choosing to live on the streets. But they have developed survival mechanisms, and it's far beyond, standing in the street saying, "Spare any change?" Sorry, I always do that because I remember there's one guy in that annoying grating voice, and he wouldn't stop all day. "Spare any change?" Anyways, eventually got himself a harmonica or something and started playing music, so that problem went away. But see, he adapted. He realized people get startled by somebody rushing out at you, "Spare any change?" And he switched to a less confrontational approach. And I'm guessing it works because he's still in the process of doing it. Problem is, he's an older gentleman. I'm terrible at guessing people's ages. Terrible. But I'd still put him in his 60s. And that's, again, a random shot. Maybe being out in the weather has hardened his features, just like the Inuit who have to squint to keep their eyes safe from the sun, even though they do have, their version of sunglasses. And I'm sure modern Inuit do wear sunglasses. But, yeah, wrinkling your face, all that sort of stuff, might make him look older than he really is. Hard to say these days. I don't think he'd be spending a lot of money on cosmetic products, but I can't say that for sure. Anyway, he's been around for a few years, and I can't pretend to know what his life is like. Probably he has some place to shower because he doesn't stink. He just seems to be a guy who has adapted and has realized this is his lot in life, which is incredibly sad when you think about it. Accepting that you're on the street and you're never going to get any better. We do have social services in this area. We have quite a few of them. From Knight's Table, serving out, I think it's free food and free meals, food banks, and, there's homeless shelters, but we don't do a good job in advertising the homeless shelters. And there's not a lot of homeless people. So it's probably just something we leave to Toronto because everybody goes to Toronto. Go to Bay Street and we'll just pick Eglinton. And that area you're going to find so many homeless people and beggars. If you had money, you could make it rain and they'd still need more. But like I said, they managed to make it through some pretty horrible days. They're not insane. They know what they're doing. Now, there are those who are insane. And that must be a living hell, not being able to quite comprehend the world because of whatever's going on in your head and having to survive in this situation. Yeah, I there's a reason I appreciate the four walls that I have. And it's because I've looked into the eyes of these people and they're just not there. But they have no choice to be someplace else. Let's look at the far north, the Inuit. The Inuit have a pretty rough life. They've got to go out, they've got to hunt, and they've got to be successful to keep their family fed. There's not a lot of wild edibles, although, as the Survivor Man show demonstrated, seaweed and stuff like that is quite valued for its nutrition. During months when it's like minus 40 and stuff like that, you got to go poking your stick in the ice. Yeah, usually they may make the seal hooks out of a hockey stick and a hook. Pretty ingenious if you ask me, but they sit there for long hours because if you move, you're on ice. Every single animal in the area knows your presence. So you got to sit there staring down, waiting for just the right shadow, and stab it, drag it out, carve it apart, all in polar bear country. But it's the only way for your family to live. I don't know if that's hell or not. I can only relate to that experience from going ice fishing, and at least I got a hut, which is a very, very different experience from what the Inuit are going through. I'm sure that they'll build a shelter, but most of the times when you're at the point where you're hungry enough to go out in that weather, you're not doing great as a human being. While we don't hear about mentally ill Inuit, it's inevitable that it's going to happen. They're human beings like the rest of us. They have good days, they have bad days. But you see, in all these situations, we don't have any jokers. We don't have any serial killers. Because homeless people and the Inuit are too focused on surviving to give any heed to anything else. That is dangerous necessity. Did you know that the Nanook of Nanook in the North died the year after they filmed that Disney special? Because he was out hunting for fish or whatever it was, and he starved to death. That's the nature of life out there. We here in the city, and I imagine a lot of places in the country, have food banks. Local charities, churches will often run some sort of way to give back to the community. So we live in a completely different world than those who are literally right next door to our doorstep. Then we get to your average free range Homo sapien from North America. We have as much food as we want. We can go pick it up. We can have it delivered. We can do whatever we want. Do you want meaning? You can watch videos explaining the meaning of life to you, philosophy, whatever it is you may choose to indulge in. We are saturated with ways to keep our senses occupied. So did that cure depression? No. Does it give us bad days? Oh, hell yeah. Name me somebody that never has a bad day. They might camouflage it very well and still say it's cheerful, but in the inside they're still a little bit upset and depressed. I keep saying depression. I'm just going to use that as a catch-all for all the various mental illnesses, because if I list them, it's going to be an hour show and it's going to be very boring. What society like we have has allowed us to actually examine depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, stuff like that, and make sure that one bad day is less likely to force someone into an unaliving spree. it is so ridiculous on this platform. I can't use the K word. But yeah, we have gotten better as a society in spotting the danger signals and ensuring that the population as a large is restive enough as to not cause problems. We have some outlying examples like the January 6 people who thought a riot was a good idea to respond to not getting their way. And believe me, that's not isolated. It comes up, but this is how people are finding their meaning. Political identities are being substituted for what were once racial politics. While I think this is a step forward, you know, you shouldn't judge a man on the color of his skin, but on the the content of his character. And I know using man in that sentence is old-fashioned, but that was the original expression and what it said. This switch to political affiliation is one of the most crazy things I have ever seen. It kind of reminds me of the 1920s when, you know, they had socialist and communist parties and, you know, Mormons were getting together to try to get their local mayor elected so that way the whole place would be under their control and they could drive out the non-Mormons. This is a radically different time than what we have today, even though there are similarities. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And our rhyming is, like I said, substituting these political parties. Now, those of you in the United States, I hate to tell you this, you're not as diametrically opposed as you think. You have two centrist parties that are pretending to be the two opposite sides of the spectrum. You don't have a real communist party. You don't have a real Nazi party. Thank goodness for both of those. And what you have instead is posturing. The problem with this posturing is it's reflecting in the people and driving them insane. Aaron Rodgers' explosion at Jimmy Kimmel. I cannot figure out what the heck Aaron Rodgers is talking about ever. He comes out 1 minute and says, you know, he likes conservatives or something like that. Then the next minute he's accusing Jimmy Kimmel of being a MAGA guy. Make America Great Again, which is code for Trump supporter. I've survived this by simply stopping listening to Aaron Rodgers. Let him do his life. It's not affecting me. My life isn't affecting him. But that's the attitude. He's insulting somebody based on what their perceived political opinion is. The battleground has changed, and not for the better. For example, today Canada is being criticized because they're not condemning nor are they affirming the actions Israel is taking. There, of course, this all goes to Trudeau because the Prime Minister orchestrates every single thing underneath him, which is ludicrous, as I've explained before. But Canada is doing the smartest thing they can. Shut your mouth. Canada has had bad days in the past, and they recognize this is a situation where it's probably best to remain silent. Remember those old homonyms, if you can't say something nice, stay silent? That's not the case. But the same token, we've chosen to stay silent. And people are accusing them of Canada of being everything from, you know, complicit with the actions Israel is taking to, you know, actually aiding and abetting them just because they did the smart thing and haven't issued an official statement. We're moving away from one bad day and we're having consecutive bad days. Lots of them. Like I said, 4 years so far, and I can probably go further all the way back to 2008. And if I do that, I can take it back to the recession of the 1990s and 1980s, and I can go on forever. The fact is, though, humans are smart. Yes, some of us choose not to exercise the intelligence that we have, but humans are smart, and we're resourceful, and we find ways to survive. There are single mothers who are raising their family and trying to decide whether to pay the mortgage and the rent or whether to pay for food for their children. This does happen. There are usually ways for them to cover for that, but it's a lot of work and it's a defeatist attitude that people get. But the support is there. One bad day is not going to turn you into a bad person. One bad decision, unless it's something horrible, is not going to turn you into Two-Face or Killer Croc or the Punisher. The fact is, humans are more resilient and they find ways to survive. The homeless, up until, well, it's getting further and further in the past, but for a long time, they could make money by cleaning up bottles in the park, picking up recycling. Take it in, you get 10 cents a bottle or whatever the heck it is. You know what? You'd have enough money for a minor meal. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep food in your belly. They knew that the Salvation Army or whoever it was offering a banquet or whatever they want to call it, and just a way to put some food in your belly and keep going. They know their favorite places. And here we are, hopefully, most of us are not homeless. We might be paying ridiculous sums of rent. We might be paying way too much for a parcel of property that keeps going up in price. But the fact is, we're still able to do it. And there are care options for those of us who have difficulty dealing with life. The Joker was wrong. It takes a lot more than one bad day to take down the average human. And that's without even examining all the horrible places in this world where your existence is threatened day to day. And the best day you can possibly have is one where there's enough food for your family. One bad day doesn't turn them into criminals. It's an entirely different resource altogether. So sorry, Joker. Humanity wins. You're the one who's insane, not the whole human race. We just act insane often enough so that we have to keep you on your toes. With that, we hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please like, share, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Please leave a comment down below. I'm welcome to all opinions on this subject. Don't forget to click the bell icon so that way you can stay abreast every single time that we publish a new episode. And we hope you have a fantastic day.